What's up, kings and queens? It's your boy Dan from Daft Previews, and I'm here once again to give you the most comprehensive NBA player prop preview you are going to see today for this upcoming slate. Now, if it's your first time watching these videos, I basically share my screen, we go through outline, I take you through what I like, I tell you what I don't, I give you my insights, and I do all this to hopefully give you all the information that you need to make the best bets possible. This doesn't work for me every day. I got absolutely rinsed on this most recent slate. 6 units down, heartbreaking scenes. Completely misread some of these games. However, I did cash on 3 out of 4 value plays. What a value play is where I predict a player's form lines. You can see it in the examples. I've popped them up on the screen. So that kind of minimized the damage because it could have been a whole lot worse. The key learning that I've taken out of yesterday, 2-game slate, but I managed to come up with 3 to 4 picks in each game, which is ridiculous. I'm going to try to minimize it to 2 different players maximum on each game unless I absolutely love it. I know that this next set of games, it does start a lot earlier than what we're used to. For example, this Cavs versus Magic game, that is at 3 a.m. my time. The Suns game's at 5 a.m., so I'm not going to watch either of those. So doing what I can to get these videos out to you earlier. Now, I haven't really previewed the slate, so I don't have too many leans that I'm looking at already. So for the things that we're about to share today, it's pretty much the first time I'm seeing a lot of them. So I'll be sharing my screen, discovering some juice. I'll add it to my short list, hopefully filter those out. And hopefully 3 to 4 hours before the game, you'll see on my final bets in the pinned comment. But hopefully you're not relying on my bets. You're doing your own research, or the research and the numbers I'm giving you is helping you out enough. Now let's go. All right, so we're kicking things off with the Orlando Magic versus the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cleveland 4.5-point favorites. Total predicted for 200. Oh, the line is set at 207 points. In terms of matchups and outs, nobody really worry about. So everyone you would assume is playing his game, which does make it easier to find some value and some plays. So let's talk through it. Starting with our key players, I reckon we start with the home team. Let's start with Cleveland in this one. We'll start with Evan Mobley at the top of our list. So his points prop here is at 13.5. Evan Mobley up against the Magic. Now, it's going to be a little bit difficult to find some juice in these games. And the reason why I say that, both of these teams, very good defensive teams. So we'll be relying heavily on the matchup data, how they performed against each other in the past, and we'll have a look at some play styles as well. But Evan Mobley, 13.5 points. He's covered this in 6 out of his last 10 games. Difficult matchup. The Magic allow the third fewest points to power forwards on the season. If we look at his head-to-head numbers, your boy Evan Mobley's been getting it done against Orlando. 5 consecutive games now, he's covered 13.5 points. We do like that in those games, playing on average 35 minutes a night and taking 11 shots. Over his last 10 games, playing 30 minutes in the playoffs now. So hopefully we see Evan Mobley back around 35 minutes. No injury concerns. He's averaging 10.7 shot attempts in his last 10, so very much in line with what he was doing against Orlando. I think with the bump up in his minutes, we can probably see 12 to 13 shots here if he gets 35 to 40 minutes. So look, first play of the day, I don't hate this. I'm going to say it up front. So what I'm going to be doing, I might slow me down a little bit, but I'll be copy and pasting some of this shit so I know to research it after I've done recording to help me ultimately find my best bets. So that's the points prop. We don't hate that. So if we don't hate it, it's worth looking into more. His assist prop, 2.5. He's cashed in 7 out of his last 10 games. 3.5 assists on average. 5.6 potential assists per game. So, yeah, that's not awful. If it was less than 5, I'd be a bit concerned, but 5.6 is pretty decent. And in head-to-head matchups, 4 out of his last 5 against the Magic is cashed in. 5.8 potential assists. So this is another one that's going on the short list. Evan Mobley assists. I don't hate that. If we go through all of his props and we find we don't hate all of them, we might even have a look at his PRA. So the assist prop, that's not looking too bad. Rebound-wise, his line's at 8.5. Now this I do not like. Up and down. 3 out of his last 10, 6.9 as an average. I think we do have to keep in mind he's going to get more minutes here, so you can probably expect a few more rebounds than what he has been getting. But in head-to-head matchups against the Magic, 1 out of his last 5 games, he's cashed this line in. And keeping in mind, against this Magic team, he was playing close to 35 minutes. And I think he'll get about 35 minutes in this game as well. So in terms of his rebound line, I do not love it. So the under in his boards, probably a lean for me. One thing I have looked at late in the season is his 3-point prop, because if we look at the season here, you can see late in the year he started to take and make a lot more 3-pointers. You can see it there. Against Orlando, though, yeah, he's only attempting 0.8 attempts per game, so I do not like that. But Evan Mobley might find something good there. I think he's definitely good for 10 points for our BAP. What do you think, boys? BAP, if it's your first time watching, is a badass parlay, but I like to call it a bitch-ass parlay, but apparently that's a little bit offensive to some people, but the BAP it is. So Evan Mobley for 10 points might make its way to our BAP today. Who else have we got? Darius Garland. Darius Garland's point line's at 17.5. We're just going to focus on his points and assists here. I don't think there's any value in his boards. Points wise, 17.5. He's only cashed in 2 out of his last 10 games, averaging 15.7 points per game. So he's getting very close to it. Walling up there, gets very close, but hasn't been hitting it. But in head-to-head matchups against the Magic, 4 out of his last 5, averaging 22.8 points per game. In these games, 38 minutes a night. So if Garland's completely healthy, which I believe he is, he should get very close to that. Now, the one thing we know about Orlando is they're not good at defending point guards and small forwards if you're big on positional data. If I think about, I guess, the way that Darius Garland scores his points and the way that the Magic play defense, Darius Garland does a lot of work in the pick and roll. Orlando, very good defensively in most areas. Pick and roll, defending the ball handler, not so much. So I think we've got a pretty good matchup here for Darius Garland. I do like the points prop from what I'm seeing so far. I guess if we think about where the Magic are good defensively, they don't allow a whole spot up shooting and 3-pointers. They're very good at limiting that, which is why their defense is so good on the year, given so many teams rely on that. So any spot up shooters for Cleveland, I'm not having it. But I think these key ball handlers, your Garlands, your Mitchells, maybe even your Karis LeVert, I think that they can have a good game scoring the ball. So I'm going to add Darius Garland's points to my shortlist here. I know his form over his last 10 is not great, but his form against Orlando is excellent, and it makes sense why, given the way that he plays. I don't mind that. Looking at his assists, the line is at 6.5. The Magic allow the third fewest assists to point guards. He has cashed this in 8 of his last 10 games. If we look at the head-to-head data, he's cashed in 3 out of his last 5. Some excellent games there against the Magic and some pretty poor ones. Keeping in mind these last 3 games are probably the ones that are most important, because these 3 games are the games that he's played against them this season: 9, 5, and 10. I believe he went over his points prop in those games too. So points and assists could be a good option for us. Now, looking at his 3-point prop, because we know he can pull up, lines at 2.5, 4 out of his last 10, but he has only cashed in 2 of his last 5. In good news, 2 of those 5 were both this season. So I do like his points prop a lot better. Let's have a look at his points plus assists to see what kind of value it gives us. 23.5. So now that gives us a hit rate of 6 out of his last 10, which is a lot nicer to look at. And if we look at the head-to-head numbers, he's cashed this in all 5 games. So, yeah, I think Darius Garland points plus assists might be the safe play. Who knows? He could go 15 and 10, right? And bust that points prop wide open. So we'll take a look at that. But I don't mind that for Darius Garland. Shit, I better not have a big short list here. So remember, I'm just trying to keep it down to 2 plays per game, unless I absolutely love something to death. So let's see how I go with that. Let's have a look at Donovan Mitchell now. His scoring style, very similar to Darius Garland's. He just has a better ability to isolate and score, probably a better mid-range pull-up, and more explosive, I'd say, out of the pick and roll too. But D. Mitch. So he came back from injury here against Philly. So 6 games ago. So he played 6 games in the back end of the regular season, warming back into it. So his minutes were back up. His last 2 games were great against Memphis and Indiana. Does have a tough matchup here against the Magic. They allow the 3rd fewest points to shooting guards on the season. And in head-to-head matchups, he's played them, 3 times this year. And in those 3 games, 35, 22, and 25 points for Donovan Mitchell. So line at 25.5. Given his hit rate, yeah, look, I don't love it. I wouldn't take his under, because the way that he scores his points, I know that the Magic probably have difficulties defending it, but I don't have too much confidence in taking his over in points. Looking at his assist line, that's at 4.5, minus 154 though. 7 out of his last 10, and in head-to-head matchups, 3 out of his last 6. Did have 13 assists in that last game against Orlando. 15 potential assists in those games. But if we look at his more recent form, what do we see? 9.3 potential assists, and you need him to get 5 assists. So if you're looking at potential assists or even potential rebounds, you kind of want to see a number that's double the line that you're trying to hit. So in this case, we need 5 assists. I prefer to see over 10 to 11 potential assists if I was willing to take Donovan Mitchell, especially at these odds, minus 154. So I'm not entertaining that. Looking at his rebounds, that line's also at 4.5. He's cashed in 3 of his last 10, and he's cashed in 2 out of his last 6 against the Magic. So rebound chances, 7.3 rebound chances against the Magic, averaging 4 rebounds, and 4 rebounds is an average in his last 10 with 7 rebound chances. So, yeah, not loving the rebounds here for Donovan Mitchell. His points potentially in his assists, yeah, I'm not loving that either. So I think those lines are a little bit too high for me to take. So Donovan Mitchell, you didn't make your way to my shortlist. Sorry, my boy. Then we have Karis LeVert off the bench. Now, Karis LeVert, I think he's got a similar-ish type of scoring profile as Garland and Mitchell. Very on-ball, dominant, a lot of stuff within the pick and roll. But he plays up against the second unit as a sixth man. So there are often times where he has an easier matchup playing against a lot of the bench guys. So I think this could be a good play for us with Garland because I don't think they cancel each other out, whereas sometimes Mitchell and Garland potentially could. So his line, Karis LeVert, is at 11.5. He's cashed this in 6 out of his last 10, 4 consecutive games. He's averaging 13.8 points per game in his last 10. In head-to-head matchups against Orlando, he's cashed in 2 out of his last 4. So a bit of a mixed bag, but he's only versed the Orlando Magic once this season. In that game, he scored 6 points in 27 minutes. He shot 2 for 10 from the field, so he didn't have the greatest game in that one. What else have we got? His assist prop, 3.5. He's cashed this in 5 out of his last 10. In head-to-head matchups, 2 out of his last 4. So the numbers there for Karis LeVert aren't overwhelmingly positive. His potential assists, they do go up and down, but this is because the Cavs have had a lot of changes. So we know that even he's had some time out, but when Mitchell came back, there's an adjustment that needed to be made. When Evan Mobley came back, there was another adjustment. So Karis LeVert, maybe his PRA I can get around with because I'm seeing a lot of ups and downs. Sometimes with the players, when you look at their PRA, it's a flat line. It's like they're going to contribute anyway. It's just not clear on how. So if we look at his rebound line, 3.5, 6 out of his last 10, 4.8 is an average, but 8 potential rebounds per game. 8 potential rebounds to get 4 rebounds. That makes sense, but this is at minus 150. In head-to-head matchups, he has gone under in all 4 games against the Orlando Magic, though. Let me see. Looking at his PRA, okay, 7 out of his last 10 he's cashed in, 2 of his last 4 against Orlando. Yeah, you know what? I've talked myself out of it. I'm not loving Karis LeVert in this one. He ain't making my short list. So still got Darius Garland and Evan Mobley so far, but we haven't gotten to the Orlando Magic players just yet. Let's have a look at Jarrett Allen. So Jarrett Allen, his points line is at 14.5. He's cashed in 7 of his last 10. Somewhat difficult matchup here against Orlando. He's averaging 18.5 points per game in 32 minutes and 12 attempts. Up against the Magic, he's cashed in 2 out of his last 6. He's versed them in all 4 games this year. 18, 14, 4, and 8 points. 7.8 attempts, so his shots are quite low against the Magic. And he's playing 26.6 minutes, so that's somewhat low, but he's had a few 15-minute games in there, which pulls the average down. So I think this line is just about right. His recent form is excellent, but I think matchup has a lot to do with this. Jarrett Allen scoring near the rim. It might be difficult here. Orlando, pretty good defensively, especially down there. Jarrett Allen obviously scores a lot of his points under the ring. I'm pretty sure the Magic are a top 10 defensive team down there. As a pick and roll man, he might have his difficulties. He could get some work done on the offensive glass, though. So, yeah, I think this line's just about right. I wouldn't take his under. I definitely wouldn't take his over, though. That's what I'm saying. Quick look at his assist prop, 2.5 at plus money, 6 of his last 10, but he's only cashed in 1 of 6 games against the Magic. His potential assists at one point in time were excellent. They're at 4.6 in his last 10, but you need 3 assists in this one. So for this, you'd like to see at least 6 potential assists if you're going to take a bet on 3. So we're not loving Allen's assist numbers. His rebound line is at 10.5, though. 4 out of his last 10, 9.2 as an average, 14.3 rebound chances. Now, for the bigs, the rebound chances, you don't necessarily need to see 20 rebound chances in order to feel confident in taking the bet because a lot of the time they get uncontested rebounds. But looking at his matchups against Orlando, 3 out of his last 6, 10.3 as an average against them, averaging 16 rebound chances per game. 4 games this year. There's no real trends from what I can see in this. So, yeah. Jared Allen. Sorry, my boy, you're not making my short list. Now let's talk through some of these Orlando Magic players. What have we got? Markel Fultz, he's probably not going to get any minutes, so I'm not too excited to look into him. Let's start with Wendell Carter Jr. Now, I know one thing about Wendell Carter Jr. is I always look at his first quarter points. He's one of these guys where if you back him in the first quarter, he's going to hit over 60% of the time. And if you do it every time, you'll make profit, right? So just want to check that out. 7 out of his last 10 games, he's cashed this, averaging 3 points per game. In the first quarters, he's only playing 7 minutes, so he's got to get this done real quick. Oh, this is interesting. 4 consecutive games now against the Cleveland Cavaliers. He's cashed his first quarter prop. He's averaging 6 points per game in the first quarter against them, and he does play an increased level of minutes, 9.8 minutes a night. So, yeah, look, this is not a bad one, believe it or not. I might play it again and just keep playing these types of guys, your Wendells, your Michael Porter Jr.'s, that first quarter shit that I've been doing all year. Might continue that throughout the playoffs. We'll see. I'm just not sure how well it translates. Looking at his rebound prop, though, 6.5. A little bit low for Wendell. 5 of his last 10, but we know his minutes were down in these last 4 games of the year. In head-to-head matchups, he's cashed in 3 of his last 4. He's played the Cavs twice this year, 9 and 2 rebounds in those games. So 2 rebounds in this game is a little bit scary. Only had 8 potential rebound chances. So whatever happened in that game, I do hope it doesn't happen again. But he's got a fairly decent matchup here if we're looking at how the Cavs and what they allow to centers. They allow a lot of rebounds. Points, not so much, but rebounds they definitely do, which makes me think of this guy, Mo Wagner. So Mo Wagner is one of those guys, if you pound for pound, in terms of his minutes played, he has great production. So Wendell might get the lion's share of the minutes, whereas Mo Wagner can put up the same stats in less time, right? But he's a bit of a slouch defensively, so it impacts the amount of time that he gets. So let's look at this. His line's at 7.5. He's cashed this in 8 of his last 10. We've seen over his last 4 games an increase in his minutes and a decrease in Wendell's. So they could have been experimenting, or Mo could have been coming back from an injury or whatever it may be. But recently, Mo getting more time, and he's been hitting this line quite well. So 10 points is an average in his last 10. But he is up against the Cavs. Jared Allen, Evan Mobley down there. Could be difficult. Mo says, fuck that. Look at this shit. 6 out of his last 7 games, he's covered this line against the Cleveland Cavaliers. This season, he's played them in all 4 games. 11, 8, 15, and 22. My man has been killing him. You know what? Mo, you're going on the list. I like this. If this is juicy. 7.5. And what's he doing? He's only playing about 20 minutes a night in these games. And that's pretty much what he's been doing in his last 5. 17.8 minutes. So if he can get 17 to 20 minutes in this game, I do like his over in points here. Mo Wagner, give it to me. You're on the list, my boy. What else we got? I'm going to click on his rebounds right now. We'll leave it on the head-to-head filter. And if it's all green here as well, I'm going to get a little bit excited. Boom. 3.5. Ooh. 6 out of his last 7 games, Mo Wagner has covered his rebound line against the Cleveland Cavaliers. So we know that the matchup's pretty good in terms of rebounding. So I do like this for Mo. Looking at his last 10, 6 out of his last 10 games. That's not extremely impressive, but the matchup makes sense here. He's not versing a stretch 5, and I don't think they have any stretch 5s in the Cleveland's roster. So I'm not worried about Mo Wagner being stuck out on the perimeter too many times. I like it. Mo Wagner rebounds, Mo Wagner points. There's going to be something in here. Don't tell me he gets assists too. No, he doesn't. His line's at 0.5. Maybe we overdid it there. But yeah, Mo Wagner, that's the guy. Wendell, take a seat on the bench, my boy. Who else we got? Joe Ingles has a lot of green in his, but his lines are super low. And I don't want another occurrence of the Dyson Daniels thing here where I back an Aussie and he barely gets any minutes. But check it out. Looking at his PRA, his line's at 6.5. He's cashed this in 8 of his last 10 with a 9.6 average PRA. 17.3 minutes per game he's been getting over his last 10. This is the playoffs, though. Will they go deep into their bench? I'm not too sure. In head-to-head matchups, Joe's played in all 4 games against Cleveland this year, and he has covered this PRA against Cleveland this year, and he's done it in only 17 minutes. So his average in the last 10 is 17. Average against his team is 17. Looking at 2023, he's averaging 17 minutes on the year. So who's to say he doesn't get another 17 minutes again in the playoffs? So I've got Joe Ingles. I'm putting your PRA on my list. PRA's on my list. I'll have a look at my Slow Joe. We'll look at him a little bit further after this and see what we come up with. Who else we got? Jalen Suggs. I think we'd most likely one. What do we got? 7 out of his last 10. He's actually been quite strong recently. 14.2 is an average. 11.2 is the line. 11.5. But in head-to-head matchups against Cleveland, your boy has struggled. He played in all 4 games against the Cavs this year, but he cashed this line only once. Has gotten decent minutes, just hasn't been able to get it done. So Jalen Suggs for points? I don't think so. Now we've got Paolo Banchero. His points line is 22.5. He's cashed this in 5 out of his last 10 games, averaging 22.8. Matchup somewhat decent here against the Cavs. Not a difficult matchup for him in head-to-head matchups with the Cavs. He's only cashed this 1 out of his 4 games this season against them, 2 out of his last 7 overall. So he has had his difficulties, and you guys know I like taking Banchero for unders. 22.5 though. I feel like that line's just about right. Well, I wouldn't be willing to take his under on this. His assist prop, he did have a stretch in time where he's cleaning up. 6 out of his last 10 games, he's cashed this, 5.6 as an average, but he's only hit this in 1 of 7 games against the Cleveland Cavaliers. So that's not promising. Rebound-wise, a little bit like a yo-yo, averaging 8 over his last 10, so his line's at 7.5, and at first glance, that feels a little bit too high to me. We look at the head-to-head matchups. He's hit this 1 of 4 games against the Cavs this season, 3 out of his last 7 though. So yeah, it's a bit based off the numbers and the trends. It's hard to say what he will do because he's capable of an absolute stinker, but he's also capable of producing some pretty good shit for points, for rebounds, and assists. So for this particular one, first playoff game, I don't have a read on Banchero, but let's have a look at our running mate Franz Wagner. His line's at 19.5. Now, Franz, very similar to Banchero, inconsistent as hell, but they go through patches. I did bet he's under a few times this year and had some success, but over the last few games, last 6 games, he's really turned it on. 5 out of his last 6, he's covered this points line. Impressive. He does have a pretty decent matchup here. The Cavs, not the best at defending small forwards. Looking at head-to-head matchup, though, he's gone under in 6 straight Cleveland Cavaliers. So automatically, I don't want to take the under. But this recent form is good. This form against the opponent is shit. And they kind of cancel each other out. So I prefer just not to bet on Franz's points. What about his assists? That line's at 3.5 plus money, and I like that. But he's cashed in his last 10. But he has cashed in 3 out of the 4 games against Cleveland this year, though. So plus money play here for Franz. What do we see for potential assists? 10, 9, 3, and 9, right? Okay. And over his last 10, what do we see? We see an average of 6 potential assists. So, yeah, 6. He needs to get 4 assists on potentially 6 to 7 potential assists. I'm not loving that. His boards, 4.5's the line, 5 out of his last 10. The Cavs allow the most rebounds to small forwards on the season. In his last 10 games, he's getting 8 rebound chances. In head-to-head matchups with Cleveland, he's cashed in 4 of his last 7, but he has gone under in his last 2 games against them. In these last 2 games, he only had 3 and 6 rebound chances. So that's a little bit concerning. But we also know he's capable of this. Another game against Cleveland, he had 15 rebound chances and had 8 rebounds. So, yeah, I think, look, very time-consuming to find the solid pick here for Franz, because what I would, if you're interested in a play for Franz, what I would be doing is I would go back and check the box score for each of these games to see what the hell was different, right? Certain players could have been missing, not missing, and yeah, that impacts his opportunities. Like Wendell Carter maybe was out game, plus Mo Wagner, who knows? Jonathan Isaac. I don't know who played in those games where he didn't get the rebounds because someone else got them. And I don't know who was missing on that game where he got all of those boards. So I'd encourage you to do that type of research, especially for the playoffs where you've got some seasonal data and good head-to-head data. Go back, check the box scores and figure out what was different, how did they play, and then you can figure it out that way. Now let's jump into the next game. It is the Phoenix Suns versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now the line in this game is Minnesota minus 1.5. We've got no players who are out of game time decisions, so everybody looks raring and ready to go. Let's kick things off with the Phoenix Suns players first. Let's have a look at Grayson Allen. Now, I have a feeling that we're going to see some pretty decent numbers here for Grayson Allen, yes, because I've bet on him against Minnesota throughout the season because of how he's performed against Minnesota. So he's up against him again. We could have some Grayson Allen plays going on here. So looking at his points prop, 12.5 is the line. He's cashing 5 of his last 10, averaging 13 points per game. Playing 32.5 minutes, 10 field goals attempted. Against the Minnesota Timberwolves, he's cashed in all 3 games this year, 14, 23, and 20. In those games, only 31 minutes, 11 field goals attempted. So his usual work rate, usual attempts, but he has turned it on against the Minnesota Timberwolves. If we think about how does Grayson Allen score his points, obviously there's a shit 3-pointers flying. He also gets a lot of easy looks, playing outside Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and Kevin Durant. He can definitely make it happen. Now, Minnesota, though, one of the better defensive teams in the league. They're actually good at defending the spot up. They reduce transition points. If anything, the only point they're probably weak at is probably the roll man. I imagine in the pick and roll, Rudy Gobert, a lot of drop coverage. And if he does hedge, then they could be in a little bit of trouble. But Grayson Allen, he's got it done against the Timberwolves in the past. I've bet him in the past with a bit of success. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put him on my shot list, and I'll dive in a little bit further later on. So Grayson Allen points, don't mind that. Looking at his assists, that line's at 1.5 minus 119. 6 of his last 10 up against the Timberwolves. He's only cashed in 1 out of the 3 games this season. 3 potential assists as an average, and in his last 10, 4.7 potential assists. So 4.7 potential assists, and 2. It's not bad. It's not bad, but loving it. His rebounds, 3.5 is his line. He's cashed this in 7 out of his last 10, which is pretty good. He's getting almost 10 rebound chances too. So 10 rebound chances to get 4 rebounds. That's not too bad. And if we look at the head-to-head matchup, has cashed in 2 out of his last 3 against the Timberwolves. Big rebounding games in his last 2. 8 and 6 boards for Grayson Allen. 3.5 is for plus money as well. I'm going to go ahead and add that to my short list. And I'm going to do that activity that I just mentioned to you. I'll go through the box scores of all these games against Minnesota. Who was playing? How did he get all these boards? Dissect that, watch a little bit of film, and hopefully come up with some solid plays. So again, I'm hoping to find only 2 plays max in this game, but I'll only go above that if I absolutely love the extra stuff that I find. Let's have a look at Bradley Beal. I made a lot of money on Bradley Beal this year, but he can be difficult to read because he goes through these patches where he refuses to shoot, gets a lot of assists, and then his last 5 games was a shooting machine. So I don't know. Let's check this out. So 5 of his last 10 he's cashed in, averaging 20 points per game in that span, but his last 5 games went off. What changed? His shot attempts went through the roof. Check that out. A lot of shot attempts in his last 5 games. Against the Minnesota Timberwolves, he gave you a bit of each, only 9 days apart. In this game, 6 from 9. Then he came up against them again, 14 from 21. I don't know if that was by design. I don't know how this happened, but Bradley Beal needs to be examined because I feel like this is a no sweat bet. Either he's going under and he's not getting close, or he's going to cream all over this line. So I think it's got my interest, Bradley Beal's points. I'm going to say that. I'm not going to say I like it, but it's got my interest. So I'll add it to my short list. We'll see what I find. His assist prop, 4.5 is the line. He has cashed this in 5 out of his last 10 games, 4.5 as an average. And in the head-to-head matchups, 1 of his last 2. So in his last game, he scored a lot more, and he got a lot more assists, which is might be telling. I think getting closer to figuring it out. Rebound-wise, 4.5. 6 of his last 10, 4 consecutive games going over his rebound line. And once again, that most recent game against Minnesota filled up the stat sheet. Covered his points, rebounds, and assist line there, Bradley Beal. Also got D-Book. 24.5 points is his line. He's cashed this in 4 of his last 10. 3 of his last 6 against the Timberwolves. He's played the Timberwolves 3 times this year. 31, 13, and 23 points. Difficult matchup here against Minnesota. What's happening in these games? Well, his shot attempts are a little bit down in the last 2, but his shot percentage wasn't great either. In his last 10 games, he's averaging 17 shots per game. Very up and down, though. So it's very dependent on his volume. You've got to worry about volume, and you've got to worry about his percentage because none of those things are reliable with Devin Booker. He's got all the skills. He scores a lot of his points in the pick and roll, where I think, the Timberwolves, probably not the best at defending that, but he's had his struggles against the Wolves in the past. The Wolves do have Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels, very good perimeter players, which is probably why, now I think about it, Probably why Grayson Allen does so well. Does that mean Mike Conley's defending Grayson Allen? There could be some truth to that, but I'll look into it. But Devin Booker's points, I don't love it. Let's look at his assists. That line's at 6.5. 6 out of his last 10. He's cashed in his last 2 against the Timberwolves, cash with ease. 3 of his last 6, though. Both of these games were this month, actually. 13 and 7 assists against the Wolves. 6.5, though. I don't like that. It does seem a little bit high, in my opinion, because I have a feeling defense is going to lock up in this game. Projected totals 214. So assists might be a little bit harder to come by, but at the same time, Devin Booker should get more minutes, right? He should get at least 40 minutes in this game. So I don't hate the assist prop there. Having a look at his rebound line, though, a lot of red. So he's gone under in 9 consecutive games, and in head-to-head matchups, he's gone under in 6 consecutive games. But he has gotten quite close to it, not going to lie. And if Devin Booker's going to play an extra 5 minutes in these games, well, there's a chance he goes over his rebound line, right? So, yeah, I'm not loving anything that I'm seeing here from Devin Booker. So let's jump into the next one. All right, taking a look at Yusuf Nurkic in this one. Points line 7.5. 1 and 3 against the Timberwolves, and only 3 of his last 10. Tough read here. Matchup not too difficult with Rudy Gobert, but he has his struggles against him, so I'm not loving that. His assist prop, I usually like this, given this matchup. I think I've bet this before up against Minnesota, probably because of how he's played against Minnesota. So let's check it out. 4.5 plus money. You got my attention. 5 out of his last 10, but 5 out of his last 6, really. Matchup, not too bad. Check this out. Against the Timberwolves, 4, 6, and 8 assists for Yusuf Nurkic. He does it with an average of 23 minutes, 6 potential assists per game. So this is going on the short list for sure. 4.5 assists plus money. Give me some of that. So I'll dive into that a little bit further to get that one out. His rebound line's at 10.5. It's also plus money. He's hit this in 3 out of his last 10, but mixed bag here up against the Timberwolves. Had 5, 15, and 5 rebound effort games in the 3 games against them this year. His minutes relatively the same. So, yeah, I can't get a read on Yusuf Nurkic's rebounds, but I think his assists, that could be a good play. And lastly, let's look at KD. Kevin Durant. Line's at 23.5, which is an insult to Kevin Durant. He's better than that. But he's only averaging 24 points per game in his last 10. He's cashed this line 5 times. Matchup difficult once again. In head-to-head matchups, he's cashing 1 of his last 4 against the Timberwolves. So that's not great. In those games, only attempting 15 shots per game, though. His volume, not that high. In his last 10 games, averaging 19 shots per game. The question is, why does Kevin Durant only shoot the ball 15 times? Could the Timberwolves be doubling him, blitzing him, forcing the pass? That I am not sure of. But I don't like what I'm seeing here for his points prop. His assist prop, that might look good. His recent form is terrible. 3 out of his last 10. He's averaging 3.5. But in head-to-head matchups, he has covered in 3 out of his last 4 against the Minnesota Timberwolves. So there could be something there. Might be worth looking into. But I don't like the lines always seem a little bit too high. Rebound, 6.5. 3 out of his last 10. 6.2 as an average. He's cashed this in only 1 of 4 games against the Timberwolves. So I'm not advocating an under for Kevin Durant purely because it's the playoffs, baby. He's going to play about 40 minutes in this game, so he's going to get a lot of runtime and a lot of opportunities. So, yeah, I'm a little bit hesitant to take any unders on someone like KD. Jumping into these Minnesota Timberwolves, who do we see? What do we got? Let's have a look at Karl Anthony Towns. He's been back for a few games now from injury. Let's check that out. 2 games. Scored 11 points against Atlanta, 10 points against Phoenix. In those games, 27 and 29 minutes played. So he's not back playing 35-plus minutes yet, probably by design. But the line's at 17.5. 11 and 8 attempts in those minutes that he was getting. So he'll probably get about 15 attempts. His shot percentage has been poor, though. 36 and 38%. From 3-point range, 17 and 25%. So the shot is definitely not there for Karl Anthony Towns. Head-to-head matchups against Phoenix, he's cashed in 3 out of his last 5. He has only played them twice this season. 25 points when he was healthy, 10 points when he was not. So, yeah, I don't like the points prop there. Might consider an under because his shot percentage is so poor right now. I don't know if he's completely recovered from his injury and shaken off the rust. Assists, 4 out of his last 10. That looks gone under his assist prop in both games against Phoenix this year. But 3.5 is still quite a low number. Rebounds, he's cashed this in 4 of his last 5 against the Suns. So he got 6 rebounds in that last game, and he only played 29 minutes. He might play a little bit more minutes, therefore more rebounds, right? Last 10, 5 out of his last 10. Yeah, let's just say, what was he getting? 29 minutes in his last one. I wonder what his numbers look like with a minimum of 30 minutes played. Last 10 games where he played 30 minutes, still averaging 8.1, cashing in 6 out of his last 10. So, yeah, not completely loving Karl Anthony Towns. I'd probably consider taking it under in his points, to be honest. That's where my thoughts are at the moment. All right, now we've got Mike Conley. His points props at 12.5. The matchup with Phoenix is a good one. They don't defend point guards very well. Now, Magic Mike has cashed this in 7 out of his last 10, averaging 14 points per game. In head-to-head matchups up against the Phoenix Suns, he's cashed in 2 out of his last 4 games, 3 of those this season. So 14, 5, and then 17 games. That's the only home game that he played against them, and the Phoenix Suns absolutely rolled them. So interesting here. Probably not one of the first options somebody would choose, but what do you think the Phoenix Suns are going to focus all their attention on? Going to limit Anthony Edwards' effectiveness, put pressure on Karl Anthony Towns, not Rudy Gobert, get all these lobs and dunks. So could be a good play here because someone's got to score the ball. Now, Mike Conley scores a lot of his points in the pick and roll, a bit in spot-up shooting as well. A lot of his points above the break. The Suns, not very good at defending that area of the floor. They're not the best at defending pick and roll ball handlers either. So I take this for Mike Conley. I'm going to add this to my short list. Minus 103 as well. Pretty close to plus odds. If we do a little bit of line shopping, we might be able to find something here. So his points prop, I don't mind. Let's have a look at the assists. 6 of his last 10, 5.4 as an average. Pretty good matchup here. But against the Suns, he's gone under in 4 consecutive games. All 3 games this year, Mike Conley's gone under in his assist prop. He's averaging 8.7 potential in these games. 8.7 potential assists, and he needs to get 6. Now, yeah, I don't know. I'm leaning to the under here. Let me flip this to the under. You take the under for Mike Conley for plus money. Now, I know it's a playoffs, and people should get extra run time, but Mike Conley, old. I think I'm the same age as Mike Conley. Maybe he doesn't get an extra 5 minutes like everybody else, you know what I mean? All right, next up, let's look at Rudy Gobert. Now, Rudy's line's at 13.5 points. He's cashed in 6 of his last 10. He's got a tough matchup here against his old mate, Yusuf Nurkic. Against Nurkic and the Suns, he's cashed this in 2 out of his last 7. He did play in 3 games against the Phoenix Suns this season. 4 points, 21 points in their most recent matchup. So that's a little bit difficult to read. Rebound-wise, 12.5, 6 out of his last 10. And he's only cashed this in 1 of 7 games against the Phoenix Suns. So that's quite interesting. Probably if they're putting Rudy Gobert in the pick and roll blender all the time. But yeah, I'd lean to the under, but this recent form, he's had some excellent games too. But the games against Phoenix, he's struggled. So look, I know it's a tough matchup. The Suns allow the fewest rebounds to centers on the season. So I am aware of that. But yeah, tough read on Rudy there. But I guess keeping in mind, I'm only trying to find max two players that I love in each game. So I'm not going to try to force it and find a way to like a play. But let's have a look at Anthony Edwards. His points prop 25.5. Now, all year I've been previewing this guy, and I rarely find the only game I've liked something for Anthony Edwards is up against Portland. And I think he scored like 40 points. But yeah, when you're looking at the data for Anthony Edwards, you look at the highlights, he's the next Jordan, or whatever the hell they're saying these days. Just look at the numbers. This guy's not even close to the next Jordan. Let's not be stupid now. Over his last 10, he's averaging 24 points per game. Now, in head-to-head matchups against Phoenix, he's gone under in all 3 games against the Suns. 13, 17, and 13. My man has struggled. Looking at his field goal attempts, 16, 19, and 7 minutes, 35 minutes a night. So he hasn't been getting it done scoring-wise. So I'm already thinking about the under. It is the playoffs. He's probably going to play 40 minutes in this game. He'll get a lot of shots up. So let's see where I land. But I'm going to get the under here, put it on my short list, and see what I can find. All right, let's have a look at his assists now. 5.5's the line. He's cashed this in 3 of his last 10, only 35% of games this season. And in head-to-head matchups, he's gone under his assist prop in all 3 games against the Phoenix Suns as well. So that's somewhat intriguing. I wonder what's going on there. Okay. So look at his rebound line. 5.5, 4 out of his last 10, only 44% of games this season. And in head-to-head matchups, he has cashed this in 2 out of 3 games this year. So does have a good matchup too. The Suns, ninth most rebounds to shooting guards on the season. So and his assist, that's something I could see taking over. But the points, I mean, rebounds, I can see myself taking over. The points and assists, I can't help but lean to the under in this one. Let's have a look at the points and assists together. You're looking at 30.5. Look at this, 17, 20, and 17 against the Phoenix Suns. In his last 10, 3 out of his last 10 he's cashed in, averaging 29.1 points and assists in his last 10 games. Keeping in mind, he did have a 50-point game here against Washington, which kind of lifts the average up. But yeah, I'll lean to the under on this one too. So I'll investigate them both. If I like them both, I'll take them both under, but most likely it'll probably just be the points. Who knows? Oh, it might just be the assists. I don't know yet. So I'll be looking into that for Anthony Edwards. And they're just checking to see if there's anybody else. No, there is not. All right. So we're halfway through. My God, this is going to be a long-ass video. All right, we've got the Philadelphia 76ers versus the New York Knicks. Joel Embiid is a game-time decision. What's the spread in this game? Let me quickly double-check that. So the Knicks are favorites in this game. Looks like it's a 3.5 spread towards the Knicks. The projected total is 209 points. A gritty defensive game is what they're predicting. Once again, I guess it is the playoffs after all. So let's go through it. We'll start with these Philadelphia 76ers, start with all the key players, and then we'll jump into the Knicks. Kelly Oubre. Now, he's cashed his points line in 7 of his last 10 games. He's gone under in his last 2, though, which is pretty disappointing. In head-to-head matchups, he's cashed this in 4 consecutive games against the Knicks. Out of curiosity, I need to know, how does he play with Joel Embiid in the lineup? Embiid in the lineup once, and Kelly Oubre scored 15 points in that game. The New York Knicks destroyed the 76ers by 30-something points. So Kelly Oubre points, not such a bad look at first glance. So let's take Kelly Oubre. We also have to factor in, right? It's going to be a little bit harder for everybody's score here. So a lot of these numbers and graphs can look very good, but keeping in mind, a lot of the lines you're probably going to see are lower than what they normally would be for the season. What else is there? Rebounds. So I did catch Kelly Oubre. I had him at 7+ rebounds here against Miami. Great high value single. Let's take a look to see what we get here. 6 out of his last 10 games, he's cashed this rebound line. Plus money for him to get 5.5. In head-to-head matchups, he's cashed this in 3 out of 4 games against the Knicks this season. I wonder if one of those games was with Joel Embiid. Yes. So he had 7 rebounds in that game that Joel Embiid plays. So I like what I'm seeing here. More shit for me to look at on Kelly Oubre. All right, what else have we got? Let's take a look at Joel Embiid. So, firstly, his points line's at 29.5. He's cashed this in 4 straight games against the New York Knicks. In his last 10 games, he's cashed this in 6 out of his last 10. So, can't help but lean to the over here. Joel Embiid, 29.5 points in a game as important as this. That's where my thought goes. But once again, that Miami Heat game is probably more important than this game, because in this game, at least you got a couple more chances if you lose. That Miami Heat one, that was close to a do or die, you know what I'm saying? And Joel Embiid only scored 23 points in that game. He shot 6 for 17. His shot percentage has been a little bit lower than you'd like it to be. Up against this Knicks team that's been waiting in the wings for a long time. I'm not sure if I can take it, especially at his current health, I'd say. He's not looking right to me. He's still great, still dominant, but he's not the candidate Embiid that we saw earlier this year. So his points prop, I'm going to have to avoid it. I'm not saying to take the under. Assists, though. Now, looking at his assists, his last 3 games have been great. In head-to-head matchups, he's cashed this in only 1 of 4 games against the New York Knicks, though. So not loving his assists too much in those games. What are we seeing? Yeah, he doesn't even have high potential assist numbers, Joel Embiid, against the Knicks. So if we ever look at his rebound line, he's cashed in 4 of his last 10. The 11.5 seems quite high, but Joel Embiid probably get a lot of minutes in this game. He played 38 minutes against Miami. We might see a repeat of that if this game stays close. And in head-to-head matchups, 1 of his last 4. So it's gotten pretty close to it. I think these lines for Joel Embiid, I reckon they're quite tight. They're nice and sharp, and he's a key player, so you would expect them to be. Let's have a look at Tyrese Maxey. So you can get him at 21 or 22.5. I'm just looking at 22.5 here. Up against his Knicks team that allows the fewest points to point guards on the season, Tyrese Maxey's cashed this in 4 of his last 6 games against the Knicks. He has played the Knicks, 3 or 4 times this year? 3 times this year. 27, 35, and 17 points against the Knicks. If you ever look at his games with Joel Embiid, he went over in games against Joel Embiid, which is pretty wild. But I think everybody should know now, Tyrese Maxey is much better with Joel Embiid compared to without him. This is last 10 games with Joel Embiid in the lineup. 5 out of his last 10 he's cashed in. I'm not loving his points prop, to be honest with you. Let's have a look at his assists. That line's at 5.5. He's cashed this in 6 out of his last 10 games and 2 of his last 6 against the Knicks. We put Joel Embiid in this one. What do we see? 6 out of his last 10. 6.4 as an average his assist with Joel Embiid. Against the Knicks, with Embiid in the lineup, he's only cashed this once. He did have 9 assists in that game, though. And the 76ers lost that game. So, yeah, Tyrese Maxey assists. I don't love it enough to put it on my list, but it doesn't look like a terrible play. Now, we've got to look at Kyle Lowry. His lines are low as hell, but he's in the starting lineup, so can get nice and effective with it. His line's at 5.5, which is only 2 3-pointers. I think Kyle Lowry takes enough three. How many 3-pointers has he taken? 3.8 3-pointers. So he could cash this on threes alone. Line's at 5.5, though. 7 out of his last 10 games, he's cashed this line in. Against the Knicks this season, he's cashed this in 2 out of his last 3. His last game against the Knicks only scored 2 points in 21 minutes. Now, over his last 10 games, he's getting 27.6 minutes per game. I don't hate this play, but you might be better suited looking at his 3-point prop because over 1.5 threes is plus 160. And the Knicks allow the 12th most 3-pointers made to shooting guards on the season. Kyle Lowry is a point guard. I get that. I think Maxey will probably fall into that shooting guard role. But yeah, look, I'm not loving the points prop. Not going to lie for Kyle Lowry. I think it's a good play, the points prop, but I don't love it. His assists, 2.5, 5 out of his last 10. 3 consecutive games here against the Knicks, right? Check that out. 8.3 potential assists as an average. I know Embiid wasn't playing for some of these games. I wonder if no, he wouldn't have been. I'm looking at the dates. Embiid was out for all these games. So if we look at his last 10, he's averaged 3.9. If we look at his games with Joel Embiid, yeah, he's gone under in 3 consecutive games with Joel Embiid in the lineup. But prior to that, he went over in the 3. So yeah, Kyle Lowry, can't get a good read on you, my man. Who else is there? You want to look at Tobias Harris? We're looking at Tobias Harris. He cashed his first quarter prop for us the other day, so I ain't too mad. But check this out. Tobias Harris has struggled against the Knicks. His line's at 13.5, and he has struggled. He's eaten only 2 of 8 games. He's played them heaps of times this year. Every game this year he's played them, and he has struggled. Last 10 games, he's been pretty good, though. 8 out of his last 10 games, Tobias Harris has got it on. If we chuck in the Embiid filter here, with Embiid, he's averaging 16.3 points per game. With Embiid against the Knicks, 9.7. Just want to check his first quarter points prop here. Yep, 3.5 plus money. He's cashing 8 out of his last 10. And in head-to-heads, though, not the most convincing. 4 out of his last 8 head-to-head matches against the Knicks. But I'm not going to take his first quarter prop, but it doesn't look like such a bad play, to be honest. All right, so those are the 76ers done. Let's jump into these Knickerbockers. Jalen Brunson. 7 out of his last 10 games, he cashed this line of 30.5. 37.8 as an average. So this guy finished the season like an absolute boss. Up against the Knicks, though, he has struggled. 8 consecutive against the 76ers. 8 consecutive games, Jalen Brunson has gone under this points line of 30.5. And there's a lot of games in here without Julius Randle. And my man's still gone under. Shot percentage quite low. In this last game, his shot attempts were quite low. So tough matchup. 76ers will have the 3rd fewest points to point guards on the season. But his recent form's too good to ignore. So yeah, I'd have to research a little bit further to figure out what I think. But yeah, I wouldn't confidently take the over or the under based off the numbers that I'm looking at. All right, let's jump into his props. 7.5 for Jalen Brunson. 6 out of his last 10 games. 76ers allow the 10th assist to point guards on the season. Jalen Brunson over his last 10. averaging 13.6 potential assists. In head-to-head matchups against Philly, he's done well in his last 3, 12, 8, and 9. I like that. 5 out of his last 8 in those games, 20, 12, and 12 potential assists. So, yeah, don't mind the numbers. I'll double-check these potential assists. But Jalen Brunson's assist prop, I don't hate that because I know he's going to have a hard time scoring. But I also know he's going to get a lot of ball, right? He's going to have a lot of opportunity, high usage rate. So the assists, definitely something I could see happening, but I'll dive into that a bit further. Look at his rebounds, 3.5, 4 of his last 10, and 4 of his last 8 against Philly. So there's nothing too convincing going on here with his assist prop. I mean, with his rebound prop. My Lord, what am I talking about? Who else do we have? Far out. These bloody team logos are the same color. Josh Hart. Let's check out Josh Hart for a second. His points line is at 11.5. He has cashed this in 7 of his last 10. 4 consecutive games he's gone over this. What do you see? In head-to-head matches, he's covered in 2 out of his last 4 against the Philadelphia 76ers, averaging 14.2 points per game. So this is the type of game you'd have to look into the box score to figure out what the hell was going on. Well, what I can see what was going on, the games where he's gone over were high-scoring games. What are we seeing? He's playing, he'll probably play 48 minutes in this game. He's averaging 9.6 shot attempts per game. Not too many three-pointers. Yeah, so I can't get a good read here on Josh Hart points. Let's have a look at his assist prop, 5.5. 6 out of his last 10. 2 out of his last 4 against Philly. Had 10 assists in that last game against Philly, which is sickening, but highly inconsistent. But the line's at 5.5. I think Josh Hart will make you look like an idiot. If you take his points, or any of his props, really, he could absolutely clear it with ease. You look like a genius, but he can fall so far away from these props, you just feel like an absolute jackass. So, yeah, I'm not too sure what to make of the assist prop there. Looking at his rebound prop, though, 10.5. He's cashed in 4 out of his last 10. And against Philly, excellent rebounding numbers, right? So 14.2 rebounds per game. And the one thing I know, these teams are playing Embiid. Those centers who are defending Embiid ain't going to get too many rebounds. And someone like Josh Hart can really make the most out of this. So, yeah, Josh Hart rebounds. I think I can fuck around with that. Let's take a look here. All right, I'll dive into that one a little bit later. Let's have a look at his PRA, just because a lot of his props are all over the place, but sometimes you look at his PRA, he looks great. So 5 out of his last 10, that's not great. And in head-to-heads, 3 out of his last 4, but these are ultimately driven by his rebounds. But if you do think Josh Hart is going to score some points plus rebounds could be a good play too. But yeah, I think his rebounds prop probably the safest one out there. Who else do we see in this game? We've got Isaiah Hartenstein. I think he's getting the start over Mitchell Robinson. That's another interesting thing for Joel Embiid. He'll have to deal with Hartenstein and Mitchell Robinson, which I don't think I have too much problems with, but he doesn't necessarily have an easy matchup where he's just going to walk through the bloke. So Hartenstein points, 6 of his last 10, hasn't scored well against Philly, so we can fuck that off. Rebounds, 8.5, 4 of his last 10, but all over the place against Philly. I regret looking at Hartenstein already. All right, we're jumping into Dante DiVincenzo. His points line's at 17.5 in this game. He's cashed this in 6 out of his last 10 games, averaging 20. Up against Philly, struggled. Now, a lot of these games without Julius Randle as well, where Dante DiVincenzo has had a higher usage rate. Has struggled here against Philly. These last 3 games, played a lot of minutes, 16, 15, and 16 points. Last 10, a little bit all over the place. I can't help but say it, but I lean to the under here. Now, DiVincenzo scores a lot of his points spot-up shooting. 40% of his points are from spot-up shooting, actually. And the 76ers are not necessarily one of the best teams at defending that, but Dante DiVincenzo has had his struggles against them in the past. I'd lean to the under on his points, but I'm not sure if I'm going to... it's not going to make my list of my favorite plays. I'll be honest with you. His assists, 2.5. 6 out of his last 10. Check this out. In head-to-head matches against Philly, he's covered it in 4 consecutive games. At minus 130, though, I'm not sure if I love that. What's a potential assist look like? 5.3 potential assists last 10. And against Philly, 4.8 potential assists. So, yeah, it's not too bad. It's not too bad. Odds at minus 130, though, I don't like that. But if you're playing one of those apps where you just have to pick over or under, or you're forced to play 2-mans, 3-mans, DiVincenzo to go over his assist prop's not a bad play. Rebounds, 4.5. He's cashed in 4 of his last Philly, 1 of his last 4. No, thank you. Right. Who else do we have in this game? OG Anunoby. Let's check out OG. Now, his points line, 14.5. He's cashed in his last 10. A matchup's not too bad here against Philly, though. But him against Philly hasn't been great. Gone under in 2 consecutive games against the 76ers. 11 shots per game. So not very convincing. His assist prop, no one would touch. Rebounds, 4.5 boards for OG. He's only hitting 4 of his last 10. 3.8 as an average. He does have a good matchup here. The 76ers allow the most rebounds to power forwards on the season. But OG has gone under in both games against Philly. So, yeah, I'm not loving what I'm seeing here in OG. I think for this particular game, I've got, maybe Oubre points or Oubre points and rebounds, Jalen Brunson assists, and maybe Josh Hart rebounds are the main ones I'm going to look into. Let's jump into the last game. It's the Los Angeles Lakers versus the Denver Nuggets. Now, these games are being played, maybe 4 hours earlier than they normally would be. We've got LeBron and AD as game time decisions, but they'll be there for sure. So I assume everyone's going to be available in this. Denver, 7-point favorites in this game. Rightfully so. Could be another sweep on the cards. Who knows? But let's take a look at it. We'll start with these Los Angeles Lakers first. Let's go with Austin Reeves. Austin Reeves, his point line's at 14.5. He's cashing 5 of his last 10. We did take his 14.5 points against the Pels, which cashed for us. Matchup against Denver is a difficult one, but Austin Reeves has had a bit of success against Denver. Check this out. 7 out of his last 10 games against Denver, he's cashed this points line. Now, what I do like about this is even though the Lakers got swept against the Nuggets, Austin Reeves cashed his points line in all 4 games in the playoffs last year against Denver, and then he cashed in 2 out of the 3 games against them this year. Now, it is at minus 130, so those odds aren't great. So I need to do a little bit of line shopping, but I do like what I see here for Austin Reeves. Now, if we check out his assists, Austin Reeves assists 6 out of his last 10 games, averaging 4.5 assists. Up against Denver, he's cashed 50% of the time, 5 out of his last 10. His last 2 games against Denver, 10 and 14 assists. That shit is wild. But this is the playoffs, baby. Things are going to tighten up. I don't think it's going to be that easy for him. I think he's going to be scoring the ball a lot more than he's going to be distributed. Rebounds for Austin Reeves, 3.5, 6 out of his last 10, and he's cashed in 4 of his last 10 against the Denver Nuggets. In the playoffs last year, he cashed this in 1 of 4, and then so far this season, he cashed this in 1 of 3. So, yeah, not loving that for Austin Reeves, but his points prop might be something I can get around. Also, we've got LeBron James. How can we miss him? 24.5 points is his line. He's cashed in 5 of his last 10, averaging 27.2 points per game. Good matchup here, the Nuggets. They allow the fewest points to small forwards on this season. In head-to-head matchups, LeBron had some success. He's cashed this in 2 or 3 games this season, 21, 25, and 26 against the Denver Nuggets. And then those games where they got swept, 26, 22, 23, and then 40. So 2 out of the 4 games against Denver last year. I think 20 points for a parlay would be good for LeBron James. Whether he can get to 25, I'm not too sure about, but the 20 looks great. The 20 is cashed in 9 of his last 10 against Denver and 9 of his last 10 games overall. So that could be a good look. Looking at his assists, 8.5 assists. He's cashed this in 7 of his last 10, averaging 9.7 assists. And against Denver, 6 out of his last 10 games. So he did cover this line in all 4 games against the Nuggets in the playoffs last year where they got swept. He has only cashed this in 1 of 3 games against the Denver Nuggets this season, 5, 7, and 9. The Nuggets allow the second fewest assists to small forwards, but I don't think that applies to LeBron James. So his assist prop, I don't mind. I don't mind the assist prop here, and it correlates well with the Austin Reeves over. So something I can get around. Rebound-wise, what do we see? 7.5 boards. He's cashed this in 5 of his last 10 games, averaging 8.3 rebounds. In head-to-head matchups against Denver, he's cashed in 2 out of 3 games this season, and he cashed in 3 out of 4 games against the Denver Nuggets. So, yeah, I don't hate the rebound play here for LeBron either. He is a year older, though, so we got to say that. But I don't hate this. But I think there could be a lot of LeBron stuff in the BAP. I'm thinking 20 points, 6 rebounds, 8 assists maybe. We can put that in the BAP. You can play that on its own. You'll get plus money for that for sure. But enough about LeBron. I'm not a big fan of his. Let's talk about Rui Hachimura. Now, for those of you who didn't know, Rui is a Blasian. That is a black Asian. Now, Rui has covered this line of 13.5 in 7 of his last 10 games. The matchup against Denver is not a bad one. So they do allow some points to power forwards, but in head-to-head matchups, Rui has cashed this in 3 of his last 7 games against them. In the playoffs last year, he cashed this in 2 or 4 games against them, but then this season, only 1 out of the 3. His minutes a little bit all over the place. So his last 2 games against them, he got very good usage. One game he scored 2 points, and another game he scored 23 points. So, yeah, I don't know if Rui's going to get some shots. It wouldn't surprise me if he does, and it wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't. So, yeah, I'm not too sure about Rui's points prop. Let's have a look at his boards. 4.5 is his line, 7 of his last 10 in head-to-head matchups. He's gone under in all 3 games against Denver this year, and in the playoffs last year, he went over in 2 of those games. So, matchup is good, but it's a pretty tough read for someone like Rui. Let's have a look at AD. Anthony Davis. His points line 23.5. He's cashed in 6 of his last 10, averaging 25 points per game. The matchup here against Denver is a good one. We know Jokic is not a great defender here. He's a lot better than Anthony Davis as a player, but he's not near the defender that Anthony Davis is. In head-to-head matchups, AD, he's cashed this in 3 of 10 games against Denver. Looking back at the playoff series, he cashed this in 2 of the 4 games against Denver in the playoffs last season. And this season, he's cashed this in 1 of 3 games against Denver. So, yeah, it does have a good matchup, but it's tough to get a read on AD and how well he's going to play. So, yeah, I don't think I could touch his points. His assist line's at 2.5. 5 of his last 10. 5 out of his last 10 against Denver. 2 out of 3 this season, though. He's cashed this assist line. But once again, not one that I'm loving on the road. Rebounds, 12.5 is AD's line. 7 of his last 10, averaging 14 boards a game. And he's cashed this half the time against Denver. In the playoffs last year, he cashed this in 3 or 4 games. But in the 3 games he's played against Denver this season, he's gone under in all 3. Did play a lot of minutes in these games too. So in the playoffs last year, he was playing 41 minutes a night. The games against Denver this season, 35, 38, 38. In his last 10 games, what are we seeing? 35.4 minutes. He's had a few 40-minute nights. Out of curiosity, interested in seeing how many rebounds does he average if he plays at least 40 minutes? So he's had 16 games this season where he's played at least 40 minutes. He's covered this line in 12 of 16, right? 12 of 16, a 75% hit rate if Anthony Davis plays 40 minutes. So it might be something that you can get around, to be honest. I wonder what the same thing is for his points now I think about it. Anthony Davis points, if he plays 40 minutes, 12 of 16 games, averaging 29.6 points per game. Interesting. So, look, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if Anthony Davis hits this 23.5. I'm just one of the, I was going to say one of the rare people, but it's not rare. One of the people that the Lakers get booted from the playoffs. Get rid of him. D'Angelo Russell, 15.5 points is his line. He's cashed this in 6 out of his last 10. He's struggled against Denver, though. 1 out of his last 6. Did score 17 points the last time he played them. But outside of that, the form has been relatively average from D'Lo. His assist line, 5.5. 6 out of his last 10 games, averaging 6. This is a plus money play. In head-to-head matchups, he's cashed this at only 1 of 6 games against the Denver Nuggets as well. So, form against Denver, a little bit tough for D'Lo. I'm not even going to look at his rebounds. Nuh-uh. All right, let's have a look at these Denver Nuggets now. I'm really excited to look at Jamal Murray, to be honest. For those of you who didn't know, Jamal Murray, one of those players that elevates his game like crazy. From regular season to postseason, Jamal Murray goes off. So a lot of what we see here might look red, but let's check it out. His points line, 24.5. See, check it out. He's only cashed this line in 31% of games this year. He's only hit this in 2 of 10 games to finish the regular season. But why the hell is the line set at 24.5? Because this man lifts. Now, if we look at head-to-head matchups against the Lakers, he's cashed this in 6 out of his last 11. If we look at the 4 playoff games against them last year, 31, 37, 37, and 25 points, covering this line in all 4 games. It's the playoffs, right? In those games against the Lakers, what did he do? 37, 42, 41, and 4 minutes played. So let's apply these filters here for Jamal Murray. Let's run him at 40 minutes. So Jamal Murray this season has played 1 game where he had 40 plus minutes, 28 against Phoenix. If we just look at his last 10 games overall, so this includes the playoffs last year. We'll look at his last 20 games. That'll include more of the playoffs. Yeah, playoffs and regular season. 12 of his last 17 games where he played more than 40 minutes, he's cashed this over. But I do like he cashed it in every game against the playoffs last year and against the Lakers last year, and he cashed it because he played a lot more minutes. And he's a playoff performer. So Jamal Murray, you're on my list, my boy. What else do we see for Jamal? Assists. Lines at 6.5. 3 out of his last 10. Gone under in 6 straight games in head-to-head matchups. Woo! He's covered it twice in 11 games against the Lakers, and both of those games were this season. Dating back to the playoffs, not too many assists for Jamal Murray. So this is an interesting one. Does Jamal Murray dime up the way he had been against the Lakers this season, or does he go into playoff mode scoring? So that I'm not too sure on. Rebound-wise, what do we see? 4.5. 4 of his last 10. Shit, as I expected. But then if we have a look at this, he's covered his rebound line in all 4 games against the Lakers in the playoffs last year. Oh, actually, no, 3 of the 4 games against the Lakers. And in his last 2 games against the Lakers, 7 and 6. So let's look at his last 20 games, where he plays 40 minutes. What type of rebound numbers is he getting? He's averaging 5.4 rebounds. So for him to get 4.5 rebounds at plus money might be something I'd be willing to muck around with too. So let me add that to my short list. There's Jamal. All right. Who else do we have here? Aaron Gordon. His points line is 13.5. Matchup against the Lakers is a good one. In head-to-head matchups against the Lakers, 5 out of his last 11, though. In the playoffs last year, and he cashed his line once. But this season against the Lakers, 2 out of 3 games. Looking at his assist prop, he's hit this in 9 of his last 10 games, which is wild. Great assist numbers there for Aaron Gordon, 7.4 potential assists. If you look at the head-to-head numbers in the playoffs last year, he cashed this in 2 or 4. And then this season, he's cashed it in 2 of his last 3. Rebound-wise, 6.5 is the line. He's cashed this in 4 of his last 10 games. And against the Lakers, he's only cashed in 4 of his last 11. In the 4 games against the Lakers in the playoffs last year, he went under this line in all 4 games. This season, in 3 games, he's covered it in 2 out of his last 3. Let's get to Nikola Jokic. Now, his points line, 27.5. Let's talk about it. Up against Anthony Davis here. Probably finished 3rd in Defensive Player of the Year voting. Jokic has covered this line in 5 of his last 10, 28.3 points per game. In head-to-head matchups against the Lakers, he's cashed this 5 out of the last 11. So he cashed this in 2 out of 3 games against the Lakers this season and 2 out of the 4 games against the Lakers in the playoffs last year. So tough to get a read on Jokic. I've struggled to know when he's going to score all year, to be honest. I think I've only got it right once, and that was up against Wemby. But let's have a look at his assist prop. I have a feeling his assist numbers in the playoffs are going to be crazy because Jamal Murray's a low. But yeah, I'm assuming so. His line is at 9.5. It's plus money, but it's 9.5. He has cashed this in 5 out of his last 10 against the Lakers, 5 of his last 11. Lakers in the playoffs, he cashed this in 3 out of the 4 games. And then this season, he's only cashed this in 1 out of 3. So, look, the Lakers do allow a lot of assists to centers. I'm going to take the lean on this one because this one just correlates with my Jamal Murray play. What I'm thinking now is I'm thinking this Jamal Murray points and Jokic assists. I probably don't play them as single bets as they're most likely correlated. It'd be good to put them in a parlay because if I get it right, we cash. If I get one of them, if I'm wrong and I've read it wrong, they're most likely both going to lose. So see what I land on. But my bets won't be done for a few hours anyway. I've got a few things to do. But let's check out his rebounds. 6 of his last 10 games, he's covered 12.5 boards. He's 13 rebounds in his last 10. In head-to-head matchups against the Lakers, 7 out of his last 11. So 2 out of the 3 games against the Lakers, he covered this line this season. And then in the playoffs last year, he did cover this line in 3 out of 4 games. One of these games, he only had 6. Denver won that game by 11. So for the most part, excellent rebounding numbers against the Lakers. Yeah, I probably lean to the over here for Nikola Jokic, but I do like his assist prop a little bit more just because it correlates with my Jamal Murray play. Where's my man Michael Porter Jr.? Michael Porter Jr., I wonder how he's going to take things. So not only did his brother get banned on the NBA for betting on himself or his own team, his youngest brother apparently ran somebody over with a car or something. I saw news on that. Like, shit, what's wrong with his family? Anyway, MPJ, his points line 16.5. He's cashed this in 3 of his last 9 games. 3 of his last 9 games. Oh, this is a head-to-head data. 3 of his last 9 games against the Lakers. So 2 out of the 3 games against the Lakers, he's cashed this line this season. Back to the 15, 16, 14, and 15 points, going under in all 4 of those games. MPJ's probably taken a minor leap this year. Hasn't been the most impressive one, but he's probably a little bit better than he was last year. And in his last 10 games, he's hit this 4 out of the last 10. So I'm not loving that, but we have to look at his first quarter prop, right? Line's at 3.5, 7 out of his last 10. In head-to-head games against the Lakers, he's cashed this in 7 of 9 games. All 3 games against the Lakers this season. But in the playoffs last year, he did cash this in 2 of 4 games. So I'm going to put it on my short list anyway. Let's test the waters here on MPJ in the first quarter. Let's not dismiss him so quickly, eh? Oh shit! I jumped out too quick. Let's look at his. He doesn't get any assists. Let's look at his rebounds. MPJ 6.5 to the line. 4 of his last 10 games. But check this shit out right here. Whole lot of green. MPJ is a rebounding beast against the Los Angeles Lakers. 9 consecutive games, he's covered 6.5 boards. He averages 9.2 rebounds a game against the Lakers. So this season, he's played them 3 times. 12, 8, and 10 boards, right? Back in the playoffs last year, 10, 7, 10, and 10. So 3 out of the 4 games against the Lakers, MPJ had 10 boards. I'm not surprised to see this line. The odds at minus 148. In these games against the Lakers, playing 33 minutes a night. In his last 10, 31 minutes. So big game. Jokic got to be busy. Look, I guess who are the main spearheads of the Lakers attack? You got LeBron, Anthony Davis, Austin Reeves, and D'Lo probably going to do most of the work. I don't feel MPJ is going to defend any of them. He probably picks up the Rui Hachimura matchup, to be honest. And Rui's just sitting there waiting for the ball. So I think out of all these players, MPJ obviously likely to get some rebounds here against the Lakers. He's done it every single time. Look, that's a trend that I just can't dismiss. This trend in his last 10 games, he goes up and down. And I think that's normal depending on the matchup, the game, the travel, and all that type of bullshit. This game, very much important. MPJ over on his boards. I like it. What I'm thinking of doing, my question is, would I take this if it was 7.5? Because that's a plus money play. He's hit this in 7 of his last 9 games against the Lakers, 5 consecutive games against the Lakers. I might be more willing to move that line up if I can't find decent odds for the 6.5. So that's on my short list, as well as his first quarter points. Whilst we're looking at his rebounds, we might as well look at his first quarter rebounds, because I know that's a banger as well. So he's cashed that in 5 consecutive games against the Lakers. In the playoffs last year, he did cash this in 3 out of the 4 Lakers. And then his last 10 games, not so good. 64% hit rate on the season, though. Of his last 10 games, 8.7 minutes per game in the first quarter. What's he got for the Lakers? He's playing about 9 minutes in the first quarter. You know what? I don't mind this. I might even just do an MPJ first quarter parlay. Just take his over in his points and his rebounds in the first quarter. We'll see how that serves me. Look, that's all I've really got for you right now. What are we sitting at? Ooh, it's a long-ass video. All right. Well, before we wrap this up, I actually wanted to say thank you. We've got a few Daft Preview All-Stars that we've earned over the last couple of days. I'm going to give you guys a quick shout-out and thank you. Oh, yeah. We got Raymond Wooton. We got Tommy. Thank you guys for supporting the channel. Hopefully you guys are still loving the content. Hopefully you guys are winning on your bets. If you guys are interested in being a Daft Previews All-Star, just click on one of the links below in the video description. Also, I'm planning another watch party. I have been doing, not necessarily a watch party, but I've been streaming the games every now and then. Haven't been giving you guys too much notice, but I am planning one. So I'm giving you guys a lot of notice here, and I'm going to plug it in every single video because it's going to be a banger. It's the Friday night games. There's 3 games next Friday for you guys in the US, Saturday morning for those of you in Australia. But the main game I'm targeting is the Dallas Mavericks versus Los Angeles Clippers game. That is next Friday. We can obviously watch the game after that as well, but that's the key game that I'm looking to stream. So if you're interested in joining that watch party, there's a link in the video description below for Playback TV. Now, Playback TV is free, right? You can just sign up for free and you can jump into the room and you can join the watch party. If you have League Pass, you can connect your League Pass to it. If you don't have League Pass, I do get a limited number of VIP passes, which I can give to people on the day of the watch party. But all you need to do, head down below, click on that playback link, jump into the watch party, because not only is it going to be me, and hopefully a lot of you guys who watch these videos every single night, but I've invited a few special guests, a lot of cappers, content creators, to jump on the stage with me. We'll talk shit throughout the game, talk about our bets and all that type of stuff. So hopefully you guys are keen for that. I've given you at least a week's notice, almost a week's notice. Next Friday, we've got the watch party. The link is in the description below. And whilst I'm plugging links, I might as well plug everything else. You know, Outlier is my go-to tool, right? It gives me everything that I need. I've made almost 100 units profit since I started the playoffs. These are getting more and more difficult to preview. Hopefully you've noticed that through the way that I'm previewing these bets. It's taken me a lot more time to find the actual juice and value for you. But I encourage you to check out Outlier. Free 7-day trial in the video link below. Play with it, get used to it, because I'm telling you, there is nothing better than finding your own bets, doing the research, and then hitting winners. I know a lot of you guys tail my picks, and you probably love me when they win, and you probably hate my guts when they lose. And I'll be honest with you, when they lose, I hate my guts too, right? But if you're making your own picks, you find your own winners, and if you lose, you learn from your mistakes, and there's not much better than that. But if you're this part of the video, I salute you. I appreciate and thank you. I value all your support. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Best of luck. And when it comes to the pinned comment, don't you fucking dare ask me about the pinned comment, because I'm telling you now, the pinned comment is going to be done in probably four hours time from me recording this, because I do have some other things I got to get to. So I'm looking at least 4 hours before that very first game. My bets will be in the pinned comments. If you don't want to wait for those, you can jump into my Discord. At least you'll get notified when bets are up. Jump into my Discord. The link for that is also in the video description. You can talk shit, but you can see all my bets. The bets I put in the Discord are very much the same as the bets that I put in the pinned comment for YouTube, so I'll leave it up to you to make that decision. Now be good, ladies and gents. Peace.
Sub to the channel because your boy's getting busy. Coming to you live from the west side of Sydney. We've got the free picks and the juice on the daily. It's all free, you don't even have to pay me.